Alright, good morning. We're back with yet another lesson today, and we're still looking at numbers and the interesting part about numbers, because mainly numbers form the foundation of mathematics. So for today we're going to look at the set of integers. So the minute the term integers is mentioned, the first thing that comes to mind is the number line. With the number line, we basically introduce negative and positive numbers. And with the negative and positive numbers, we include, so these are basically the numbers that make up the set of integers. The number line. The number line is basically something that you'll get to use quite often, and always the starting point is 0. To your right hand side you have positive numbers. To your left hand side you have the introduction of negative numbers. So this is basically what a number line looks like. Numbers go on up to 1 million plus, even on both sides basically. Now, when it comes to the number line, it helps you understand the size or the value of a number. What do I mean? When you look at your number line, 0 basically says there's nothing that you've got. If you have 0 apples, you basically have 0 apples. So the concept of value is based on the number and the place values. Now, before we come to the issue of place values, because place values play a bigger role, but in this particular topic we'll just focus on positive and negative numbers and their values. So as you notice, if you have 1 apple, you definitely have more apples when you have 2, and you definitely have more apples when you have 3, and you definitely have more apples when you have 4. So meaning, as you move towards the right hand side, the value of your numbers goes up. Then again, if you notice, just using the positive numbers, if you start moving from right to left, you discover that numbers start going down in value. One interesting thing about mathematics, it's not having the correct definition of a term, it's having the correct understanding. The correct understanding of a particular concept will help you more than memorizing the definition. Not to say that definitions are not important, but your personal understanding is more important. Now, having stated this, as you move to the right, the values of your numbers go up, and when you start moving to the left, the values of your numbers start going down. And this is just basically when we look at the positive numbers. The same continues when you cross over the 0, in the sense that the value -1 is greater than the value of -4. What am I saying? As you move to the right, the values will always go up. And when you move from the right going to the left, the values will always go down. So, what are we trying to say here? What we're trying to say here is this. For positive numbers, it's obvious because you can relate. Just like I was relating to apples, you can relate when you're dealing with positive numbers. But when you're dealing with negative numbers, those are the numbers that are quite difficult to relate to. Now, when you look at this, the translation of this is that when you start with 0, -1, the values start going down because you're moving towards the left, which is basically the same idea when we were working with positive numbers. So when you move to the left, the values start going less, despite the numbers getting larger in terms of the number that is appearing in the place value. You'll discover that -1 is greater than -4. What this simply means, you can have a -200, but this -200 is smaller than the simple -1. Or better still, if we said -200 is smaller than just the basic one that we are talking about. Now, having stated that clearly, I need now to introduce the concept of greater or less than. Okay, greater than. From the word great, meaning whatever is bigger, whatever is huge, so to say. So when we say greater than, you notice that as we moved to the right, the numbers were gaining in value. We started with 1 apple. At the end of the day, we had 5 apples, and definitely 5 apples translates that you have more apples, isn't it? So greater than, and if you noticed, we are moving to the right. So when you are facing your paper, your right hand, when you lift it up like this, what you'll get is such that this is the sign for greater than. Towards the right. Basically, let's just say the right hand. The right hand gives you the greater than sign. Then, when you look at the other term, less than, it was basically numbers that we were getting as we started moving from the right, moving towards the what? The left. Hence, for you to remember, your left hand gives you the less than sign. So with these two basic signs, these are the ones that will form the basic foundation of our lesson today, because we should be in a position to tell the value of a number, whether it is positive or negative. But in this particular sense, let me rub and look at one example that will help us understand this concept. So using the number line, compare the pair using greater and less than signs. Okay, so looking at this particular example, we are using numbers of the number line. Then from there, we are supposed to state or mention or put the correct sign that should be placed in the box. So the question here is 4 greater or less than -4? So the first question you ask yourself is, on what side is 4 in relation to -4? So when you look at our number line that we started with, when you're starting with the number 4, 4 is on your right hand side and -4 is on the left. So all numbers that are on the left hand side, all numbers that are on the right hand side are greater compared to those that are on the left hand side. Let me say that again. When you're given a question like this, you have +4 and you have -4. You place your numbers on your number line with respect to 0. Numbers on your right hand side, we said, are greater than those that are on the left hand side. So since 4 is greater because it is on the right hand side. The correct sign to place in the box is the greater than sign. I hope that is simple and straightforward. Then again, we move on to the next question. When you look at our next question, both numbers are what? Negative. Meaning they are on the left hand side of 0. So in terms of value again, you remember we started with -1, -2. So this time around we're going to have -3, -4, and you have our -5. Now, when you're looking at the two numbers, we are looking at -5 and we're looking at -3. We are starting with -5. Is -5 on the right hand side of -3, or is it on the left hand side of -3? So looking at our number line, this clearly tells us that -5 is on the left hand side. So when a number is on the left hand side of a number that you are making reference to, then definitely this number should be what? Less than. Because we said as you start moving from the right to the left, the values go down. If you start moving from the left to the right, the values go up. So this basically answers our question. Now we come to another interesting question here. You have a +5. Maybe let me indicate the positives. Okay, +5. And you're trying to compare it with -1. Again, the same principle applies. You have our number line, you have 0, and your +5 is on the right hand side, and your -1 is on the left hand side. So here we are starting with +5. Is +5 on the right hand side of -1 or on the left hand side? So looking at our number line, the +5 is on the right hand side and the -1 is on the left hand side. So this basically tells you that the +5 is greater because it is on the right hand side. So these are the most basic but important points that we need to know, and this is what forms our mathematical foundation. So with these 3 examples, I hope you have understood the concept, or maybe I add 2 more for better understanding. Okay, let me try to add 2 more. Using the same question as in the first 3 examples that we answered, we have a question to say we have 55 and we have 46. Now the question is, which of the 2 is bigger? And again, when the sign is not indicated, it basically means the number is what? The number is positive. So we are saying, when you come to the number line, these numbers will be placed in what arrangement? Because when you look at 55 and you look at 46, both numbers are on the right hand side of 0. So the first number that you get to write will be 46. Then you have your 55. And definitely the numbers in between, isn't it? Now, 55 with respect to 46, which of the 2 is bigger or lesser? When we look at the way they are presented on the number line, 55 is on the right hand of 46. 55 is on the right hand of 46. So meaning 55 is definitely larger than 46. So we'll say 55 is greater because it is on the right hand side of 46. I hope that one has been cleared and answered correctly. We move on to the next. negative 100 and we have a positive 2. Presentation on the number line, it will be like you have your 0, then you have your 2 on the right hand side, and you have your negative 100 on the left hand side. So following the same principle that we're looking at, since we are starting with the number negative 100, we are saying negative 100 is on the left hand side of positive 2. For the fact that it is on the left hand side, it is definitely what? Lesser than the positive 2 we are making reference to. I hope the concept, you've caught on with the concept, and this will live with you and stay with you, and will be easier for you to remember as you continue learning your mathematics, because these are the signs that you continue using, just like we have continued using numbers from 0 to 10. All right, so that basically concludes our lesson on integers, the introduction of integers and the concept of positive and negative numbers. Now, with that said, let's try and look at an exercise to find out how much we have learnt from this particular lesson. I hope you have taken note of these particular questions, because I have one last question to add. Okay, that basically marks the end of our lesson. And to help my learners, for the second question, we're basically asking you to arrange the numbers in ascending order. To ascend is to go up. So meaning you're supposed to start with the smallest number, then you start going up. So that is basically the term ascending. I hope with that clarification you get to enjoy your exercise, and thank you.